So I'm Sean Whitcomb. I teach at Mesa Community College in Arizona, and my OSM username is mycoda. I want to start off just by talking a little bit about public park benefits. Most of you probably at least intuitively understand this, but public parks provide opportunities for recreation, obviously, community cohesion, getting families and neighbors together, and a connection to nature that is often difficult to find in cities. Putting all that together leads to increases in physical and mental health, and this is well supported by lots and lots of research. Unfortunately, like with playgrounds, parks in general, have some issues with equity. Not all residents have the same access to parks. There's plenty of evidence showing that U.S. cities with higher median incomes and lower racial diversity are more likely to have higher quality park infrastructure. Likewise, parks in whiter American cities have more tree cover and are cooler in the summertime. Now, looking specifically at Phoenix, where I live, there's kind of mixed evidence on inequities in Phoenix. Phoenix is kind of a newer city, so it has obviously some of the same challenges of other cities, but also, maybe things are a little bit different just because of the way the city has been built. And so there's evidence kind of going both ways on whether there is equity of the public parks in Phoenix based on race, ethnicity, and the age of the residents. So I wanted to look at using kind of a methodology I cobbled together from a few different sources, because all of these, the papers that I've looked at have used sort of different methodology to figure out equity of parks, and I wanted to kind of put some of what I thought were the best ideas together. Some of them look at the entire metro area of Phoenix, which is many cities. Some of them look at just a subsection of the parks within Phoenix itself, but ignore many of the other parks. So what I wanted to do was looking at, are Phoenix public parks equitably distributed? I wanted to look at all of the parks in the city of Phoenix proper. So we have 183 what we would consider public recreational parks. That does not include things like big mountain preserves and things like that. But what you think of as a typical city park. I only included 179 in this study because some of them didn't meet the criteria, and a couple of them are so new that there's really not much data there. And then I wanted to answer these two main questions. How are park acreage, tree cover, green space, and amenities distributed throughout the city in these parks? And then, are any of these factors correlated with the race, ethnicity, age, or socioeconomic status of the residents in the neighborhoods around the parks? And you can see in this map, all the little green blobs on there are the 180 so parks that are in Phoenix. So the study design, basically, first of all, I needed to quantify and map those park metrics, the total area of the park, the land cover, trees, and total green space, and then the amenities, and I'll talk more about what I mean by that in a little bit, and then summarize the demographics of the surrounding neighborhood. So looking at race, ethnicity, the age, and the socioeconomic status of the people who live around each of those parks, and then compare them and see if there are any inequities in neighborhood park quality. And I, to kind of nerd out on some of the details here, I put all of this into a PostgreSQL database and analyzed it using PostGIS, Geoda, and JASP, which are all open source software packages. I couldn't really find the time to learn R to do all of this, but hopefully, down the road I'll do that. First of all, I had to gather all the park data. Well, if any of you were at the Tucson State of the Map a few years ago, I gave a talk about micromapping all of the parks in Phoenix, and I mentioned in that talk, go ahead and micromap whatever the heck you want because you never know how people are going to use the data. Well, here I am a few years later using the data that I micromapped in all of these parks around Phoenix. I also got a bunch more data from Phoenix Parks and Rec. They do have an open data portal, but the GIS person at Parks and Rec actually supplied me with a bunch of stuff that wasn't available publicly. Things like even the location of every single bench in the park and things like that. So I used Overpass Turbo to download park and amenity data once it had been added to OSM. So amenities include things like playgrounds, community centers, pools, sports facilities, ponds, you name it, anything you can think of that people would want to go to a park for. And then I used a tool called iTree Canopy to quantify park tree cover and green space. Let me give you a little bit of detail about that. So this is a free software package from the U.S. Forest Service and some private partners. And basically what you do is just take a shapefile of whatever area. You could do an entire city, a state, a neighborhood, whatever. Mine happen to be park boundaries. Upload those park boundaries individually, and then the program randomly assigns points throughout that park. And then wherever a point lands, you determine, is this on a tree? Is this on impervious surface? Is it on just soil? Is it on grass? You can define those land cover types however you want, and then it basically just gives you a percentage of each of those land cover types within the area that you've defined. A lot of the studies on tree cover, land cover in parks rely on remote sensing because it is kind of a lot easier to get the data, but it's extremely imprecise, very large pixel sizes, low resolution. So I tried to work with that a little bit, but some of these pixels are so big that they are the same size as some of the tiny little parks in Phoenix. So you can't say how many trees there are within this one pixel, right? So this is a lot more accurate, but extremely tedious. I thought it would take me a month to get all of this done. It took me like 4 months. This was the main part of I've been on sabbatical for the past year, luckily, and that's what the main thing that I worked on is just finding trees in parks. So then I calculated a park amenity score. This is a score from 0 to 15, and basically each park gets 1 point for whether there's a pool, a skate park, a community center, a dog park. Again, there's the list of all the amenities that I was looking at. And then, because sports facilities are so important, I gave a range of 0 to 3 points for the number of sports facilities. So, that could be 15 pickleball courts, or it could be, 2 baseball diamonds, a basketball court, 2 volleyball courts, and so on. So that's just the number. But then 0 to 3 points also for the types of sports facilities. So that's kind of a diversity measure. So, the ones that have more different kinds of sports facilities are going to get a higher score on that rather than just the 15 pickleball courts. That's going to be a lower score. And you can see the difference here. These maps are not to scale, but we have a smaller park on the left with an amenity score of 4. You can just see there's not a whole lot there in terms of amenities. And this one on the right is one of the highest scored parks. There's pretty much everything you could imagine in that park: community center, pool, lots of sports facilities, and so on. So then what I needed to do was identify what I consider the park neighborhood. This is the area around each park that's kind of a walkable distance. So what I first had to do, I did this on the block group level, which is a Census Bureau designation that can include anywhere from 200 to 7,000 people, depending on the block group. But you can see the outlines of the block groups in that map there around this one individual park. It's called Desert Storm Park. And then I identified the centroids, just the geographic centroids of those block groups. That's basically just, the center of that shape. But because some of the block groups in Phoenix are quite large, and people might only live in one little area of that, I actually did a population-weighted centroid. So let me just back up here. The darker kind of purple-colored dots are the geographic centroids, and these lighter orange-colored dots are the population-weighted centroids. And you can see some of them shift a little bit because it's based on where people actually live. And then I drew buffers of 1 kilometer, because that's about as far as most people can walk in 12 to 15 minutes. And basically determined whether a block group's population-weighted centroid lies within that buffer or outside of it. And you can see there's a difference here between the non-weighted centroid is outside this buffer on the right, and the weighted centroid is inside the buffer. So the weighting by population does make a difference. And then I calculated the demographic data of each of these neighborhoods around each of those 181 parks, or 179 parks. And I used census data for this, and then got basically an average of all of the blocks. So you can see the ones in yellow are all the ones that are considered part of this park's neighborhood, and then took the average, population-weighted average of all these characteristics: percent Hispanic in the neighborhood, percent white, percent under 18, percent 65 and over, and then something called a deprivation score that kind of gets at the socioeconomic status, and it includes things like the amount of unemployed people, education level of the people. There's several factors that were all kind of crammed together into one score. Then I did a statistical analysis. Unfortunately, when you're working with spatial data, most of the times your data are what's called spatially autocorrelated, meaning things that are closer together are more similar to each other, and this can violate the assumption of independence when you're doing statistical analysis. You can see that here. Most Hispanic people in Phoenix live in the same area. So I used a tool or a method called geographically weighted regression to find the correlations, and this accounts for that spatial autocorrelation. Another thing is that I'm dealing with non-normal data. As with a lot of demographic data, you can see here, this is the percent Hispanic within park neighborhoods, and it's kind of skewed. We would call that right skewed. most of the numbers are pretty low. So this is not a normal bell curve distribution, which you're used to working with in statistics. So I had to do some transformations, square root or log transformations. For any of you who understand what that means, that's important. But basically, when you're looking at the graphs that I'm showing, don't worry too much about the numbers on the axes because they have been transformed. Just look at the overall trends, and that's what's important. So here are the key findings. Finding number one, about half, 52.5% of Phoenix residents live within a 15-minute walk of a public park. So definitely could use some improvement there. Interesting thing here, lower socioeconomic block groups are slightly more likely to have a park nearby, which was a little bit of a surprise for me. And you can see the ones in dark green are the block groups that have a park nearby, and the ones in that kind of beige color are those that don't have a park nearby. Key finding number two, parks in neighborhoods with fewer Hispanic residents, more white residents, and more wealthy residents tend to be a bit larger. And I say a bit larger because you can see there is a positive correlation there. That line is going up to the right, but the R-squared value is only 0.099. And to put that into normal terms, that means only about 10% of the difference in park size is correlate or kind of related to the ethnicity and the socioeconomic status of the people. So there's lots of other factors that determine park size. It's not just about the demographics of the people there, but there is, this is a statistically significant result. Finding number three, conversely, neighborhoods with fewer Hispanic residents, more white residents, and more wealthy residents tend to have parks with more tree cover. So you can see here, and this is this is similar to what I saw with the size of the park. This is looking at how much of that area of the park is covered by trees, and you can see here this is number of Hispanic residents or population percent of Hispanic residents, and you can see there's a downward negative trend here where. Again, more Hispanic people are in the surrounding neighborhood means that there's going to be less tree cover. This is a slightly stronger correlation with an R-squared value of about 0.157, which means about 16% of the variation in tree cover is explained by the number of Hispanic people who live in that neighborhood, or the percent of Hispanic people. Finding number four, there were no significant differences in any park factors when you look at the ages of residents in surrounding neighborhoods. Park amenity scores were not correlated with any demographic factor, so those amenities are fairly well equitably distributed. Total green space, that's the trees, the grass, and the shrubs, was not correlated with any demographic factor, unlike the trees themselves, if you just isolate only the tree cover. So, to answer the question, are public parks in Phoenix equitably distributed? Well, people of all ages do seem to have equitable access to Phoenix public parks. Parks with high amenities do seem to be equitably distributed throughout the city, and green space in general has a pretty good distribution throughout the city. However, when it comes to park acreage, there are some equity issues there, but it's pretty close. It's definitely better than a lot of the cities that I've looked at in the literature. And tree cover acreage in parks similarly is not equitable, but pretty close. So what can the city do to address any of these bits of park inequity that I found? Obviously, you can't make bigger parks most of the time, but you can add more parks with more amenities, adding more trees in the parks where they're needed most. And Phoenix Parks and Rec is actually revising their master plan right now, and I've been sharing my data with the GIS person at Parks and Rec, and I'm hoping they'll take some of these things into account when planning for the future. They have added 3 new parks since 2020, and there's a new one coming online this year, and they're mostly in a pretty largely Hispanic area in the southwest of Phoenix, where you saw a lot of the Hispanic population down there. I go out in ground truth a lot of the parks. I haven't been to every single one, but a lot of them I'm seeing new playgrounds, updated playgrounds, and lots of new exercise equipment for adults and kids to use. So that's really exciting. And you can see in this picture here, this is one of my own neighborhood parks. This is 80-some new trees that were planted in 2024. And actually, it's an interesting program where the local baseball team, the Arizona Diamondbacks, every time they break a bat during the season, they promise to plant 1 tree in a city park. So all of these were the 80 bats that were broken that year. So I want to thank my school, Mesa Community College, for giving me a sabbatical to be able to do this research. The City of Phoenix Parks and Rec has provided immense amounts of data, and of course the OpenStreetMap community for providing lots and lots of the data and support throughout this to kind of help me along in the journey. So thank you very much.